We could just begin with the ceasefire that is now in place, we understand, between Israel and Lebanon. How significant is this, knowing we still have a remaining question about Hezbollah, separate to the Lebanese government?
Right. Well, it's a major breakthrough. We're basically a second opportunity. There was a ceasefire in November 2024. It didn't work out. Hezbollah was able to basically violate it. Iran was able to continue to supply and support Hezbollah. But we've seen increasing movement inside Lebanon against Hezbollah. And I think that the ability of the Lebanese to accept the terms of this ceasefire is quite extraordinary. And we haven't seen a summit-level meeting between the United States, Israel, and Lebanon ever. It's not just 30 or 40 years. This is ever. So this is a major accomplishment by this administration. But Hezbollah is going to do everything they can to spoil it. The United States is going to try to, I think, disentangle the talks with Lebanon and Israel from our own talks with Iran, although there's an objective interconnection anyway between them. Could potentially be another blow to Iran's ability to project its power in the region.
Wow. Well, we appreciate your framing the significance of this, whether or not it lasts. Do we essentially see then a partnership between Israel and the government of Lebanon to do away with Hezbollah?
I think you're seeing a congruence of interests in which both of those governments have a common interest in preventing Hezbollah from violating the sovereignty of Lebanon to promote the interests of Iran.
That would suggest continued fighting.
It would suggest continued fighting, exactly, and the Israelis would have to retaliate. Now, this agreement is a ceasefire minus. If you look at the fine print, and I've only just seen it and glanced through it, but the fine print shows that both sides have agreed, frankly, that while there's a ceasefire, Israel can continue to act in self-defense as needed against Hezbollah, just as the Lebanese army will be acting to gain control of their territory. The other significant thing is it entails an agreement by Lebanon to end the state of war with Israel, which has existed, technically anyway, since 1948. So this is a big development.
Well, and we've spoken with former Israeli officials. The former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, spoke with us a few days ago about how for Israel, for existential reasons, they need to guarantee that there is no longer this threat posed to them from the north. They also would like a guarantee that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Do you see as both of those things being able to be guaranteed through the diplomatic process, and in what time frame, realistically?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, Michael's saying exactly the accurate version of the Israeli perspective and needs in this. I think what we're seeing is the sounds of the shifting of the power balance in the Middle East, in which Lebanese who have been intimidated, many assassinated, frankly, by Iran's Hezbollah proxy, courageous enough and interested enough to join forces with Israel and the United States to deal with this problem once and for all. But how things shape out between America and Tehran will be critical. If the United States emerges victorious from that effort, in which Iran is no longer able to project power around the region, then Lebanon will be much easier not to crack, complex as it is.
Does this answer the question today once and for all about whether this administration has influence over Benjamin Netanyahu and the government in Israel?
I think that, I've watched this and been part of this relationship for 38 years. There's always friction. There's always friendship. There's always slightly different perspectives. Israel's right there on the front lines, and they have politics and they have people in the firing range.
Sure.
We don't. But we're their greatest friend, and as long as we have their back, American influence will prevail, and I think that's what we're seeing today.
What about the notion of American credibility and its trustworthiness at the negotiating table, specifically when it comes to Iran? As Iran has repeatedly suggested, we've been burned by you before. The last two rounds of negotiations ended with the U.S. bombing various sites in Iran. So do you expect that Iran is treating us as a trusted negotiating partner right now as we consider what kind of promises Iran is willing to make?
Forgive me, but I don't think this segment's long enough for me to detail all the moments in which Iran has violated any trust of the United States. Sure, there's probably a lack of trust
on both sides.
Which goes back to the hostage-taking of our embassy and the Marine barracks bombings, and the list is long. So this is an Iranian tactic to try to put us on the defensive. The fact of the matter is that Iran really only responds to force, and then we can try to see what we could do politically in the aftermath to get a political agreement. Iran's not going to go away. They have a place under the sun, but not as a hostile power the way they have been for so many decades.
We've talked a lot over the past 24, 48 hours about the more than 10,000 troops that are on their way to join some 50,000 who are already in the region. We heard from Pete Hegseth and General Kane today that they will be ready if this ceasefire falls apart. I guess the question is, do they in fact with the armada that's already been amassed, strengthen America's hand at the negotiating table?
Undoubtedly. This is what's brought Iran to the negotiating table in the first place. They have asymmetrical power. We know that. They can use drones. They can try to stop the shipping. But the globe is not going to accept Iran holding the entire global economy at its throat. So I am confident that a combination of American diplomacy, statecraft, military power, if used effectively and intelligently, can bring this to a peaceful and stable place. But it's going to require persistence. This isn't going to happen overnight. And there is a problem in Washington, not just this administration. We tend to lose patience. Persistence is key. Keep the pressure on.
Well, and Bloomberg has reported today that the Gulf states are expecting that any agreement between the U.S. and Iran could take something like 6 months. Obviously, the JCPOA took much longer than even that to negotiate. In an optimistic scenario, how quickly do you think this could be done, Ambassador?
Right. I mean, usually in these things we have phases. There's a breakthrough where there's a kind of an agreement in principle, declaration of principles kind of thing, where both sides show they're willing to compromise. But then the devil's in the details, and that will be key. And I don't think, it looked a little bit coming out of Saturday in Islamabad as if we were haggling over the sunset period for their enrichment. It's so much deeper than that. It's so much more complex than that. And I think the administration understands it. So that will take time. But have we broken Iran's resistance? That will be key. And are they prepared to accept that fact? And then we have grounds for negotiation. But I suspect we're going to go through a hybrid period of episodes of violence and episodes of negotiations. Yeah.
Is this the most optimistic, that said, that you have been since the strikes began?
Yes. I'm one of nature's pessimists, so yes.
Well, I can sense that. And it's because of this ceasefire that was announced today.
Well, in Lebanon, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a big part of my life, so I'm very happy to see this, and I think it's something we can work with, a shifting change of power structure, which is key.
Well, and of course, you didn't just serve as ambassador to Lebanon, but as we mentioned, also ambassador to Pakistan. So what should we make of the role of Pakistan as a mediator? President Trump himself said he would be willing to go to Islamabad to sign a deal if we ultimately get to that point.
There are three big things happening in Pakistan. One is that there has been a breakthrough in the American-Pakistani relationship going back to President Trump's intervention in the crisis with India last year, in which the Pakistanis felt that their interests were not only protected but maybe even advanced. So the relationship is being rebuilt significantly. And it's a country that wants to be seen as a responsible player on the global stage. Secondly, they have a very strong military relationship with Saudi Arabia. So whatever they can do to help their friend in Saudi Arabia is a positive for them. But above all, I would watch the Pakistan-China relationship. Pakistan's closest ally is China. They would not be acting without a green light from China, which suggests to me that China actually wants a stable outcome in the Gulf and a reopening of the Straits, and hopefully are prepared to use their influence to that. At any rate, it's intriguing, and I think worth studying more.